All right, we're going to see how Taylor Swift measures up to in the rating formula, and we're going to see where she will be ranked. Now, before I start, if you want to get your face rated, make sure to hit me up on IG, and I will do it for free in less than 3 days or so. That's how long it should take me. All right, so before I start, I just want to play this little quick clip and tell me what y'all guys think. And
she looks like AI. Don't that video like AI?
Yeah, bitch looks perfect.
like a damn Barbie doll.
Yeah.
Look at her. Pull it back up. Look at that. Mr. Fives are having fun with that.
I can't wait till these AI and these computers come out. I'm going to be the first one I order. I want the Taylor Swift edition. Yep, I want that AI-looking woman, boy. She look like AI, man. You know what makes her look like AI? Pull up the picture again.
What?
Her face is symmetrical. Her left eye is the same as her right. Her nose is the same as on her left side of her nose.
Where's her characteristics? She's got like blue eyes.
Her face, if you was to take a medic and chop her right down the center of her face, both sides would be the same.
all right, so her rating is an 8. How rare is that? That is 1 in 8,226 people. The percentage of people is going to put her at the top 0.01 percentile. And I'm going to go through all of her scores. So her side facial score is a 67%. Her front facial score is a 86%. Her total facial harmony score is a 79%. Her facial dimorphism is an 8. Her body fat factors is a 7.5. Her miscellaneous features is a 9. Now the tier list to the right side, tier 1 is ideal, tier 2 is near ideal, tier 3 is normal, tier 4 is a slight flaw, tier 5 is a flaw, tier 6 is a huge flaw, and tier 7 breaks harmony. Now I'm going to go through her overall facial assessment breakdown. Let's start off with the worst features, and after we're going to go to the best. So her worst features are extreme overbite, bulbous nasal tip, eye protrudes outside the orbital rims, weak eyebrow density, short philtrum length, mandible is too short for the skull. So those are the worst features. Now to the best features. So she does have full lips, great jaw angle, very high cheekbones, perfect eye area, compact facial features, and decent head shape. So I'm going to go through all of these for the measurements so I can have a better idea. And we're going to go through a lot of lip measurements, and I'm not going to go through all the measurements that I have completed, but I'm going to go through the most important ones, and I'm going to start off with the lip measurements. Now, before I do that, I just want to show you guys my Rarity Scores of the celebrities so y'all can have an idea of who I put who where. And I've been making a bit of changes for this. And so this is my current list of the celebrities that I have listed. And so y'all can take a look at this real quick. All right, so the Rickus E-line goes from the nasal tip down to the chin, and preferably you want your lower lip to be closer to the line than your upper lip. Now for her upper lip and lower lip is actually the same length, believe it or not. So that's why I gave her a tier 2 for this measurement, and for that reason, you're not going to get full points. Now the H-line is going to be a little bit different. It goes from the tip of the upper lip down to the chin, and your bottom lip is actually supposed to touch the line. Now her bottom lip is not actually touching the line. It might look like it's touching the line, but her bottom lip is not touching the line. So she gets a tier 2 for that. So if the bottom lip passes the tangent line, then you will get a tier 3 for that. But for her, she gets a tier 2 because it's close, but it's not touching it, or it's not necessarily there yet. All right, so the S line goes from the end of the nostril down to the chin, and you want your upper lip and your bottom lip to touch that tangent line. Now her upper lip is touching it, but her bottom lip is not. And one thing that I've noticed from her lip measurement is that her upper lip really isn't the problem. The problem is actually her bottom lip. So her bottom lip is too retrusive. If her bottom lip was more protrusive, then she'll literally get a tier 1 for all these lip measurements. And then we have the burstal line. So the burstal line is going to be a tier 2, and it goes from the subnasal down to the chin. And you want your upper lip to be ahead of the bottom lip, but her bottom lip is barely even passing that tangent line, but her bottom lip, like I said again, is a bit too intrusive. If her bottom lip was just a little bit more protrusive, then she'll also get a tier 1 for this. But this one was was very, very close to ideal, just slightly off. Her S2 line, this is the best way for me to indicate whether she has an overbite, which she clearly does at 42%. This indicates to me that she has a very aggressive overbite, and this is going to be a class 2 malocclusion. So with a overbite that's a class 2 malocclusion, that means that the upper teeth are ahead of the lower teeth, and that is not what you want to have at all. So if y'all probably look on Google and look at her smile, there's a good chance that her upper teeth is probably past her lower teeth. And another thing too is a lot of these famous celebrities actually have overbites, believe it or not. And even with veneers, I think veneers kind of accentuate that a little bit more, to where it makes it more prominent. And if you have an overbite, and you get veneers, that can also extend it a little bit more. That's something that I've noticed personally. So yeah. All right, so the next measurement is the Z angle. Now, this is another lip measurement. It's to show how protrusive her lips are relative to her face shape or her skull. And this actually surprised me too at 70 degrees. Now, 70 degrees is something that, let's say, an Hispanic person may get. To be honest with you, this is kind of like, let's see, what celebrity I could think of, like a Richard Ramirez, I believe that's what his name is. Here, I believe his was like 71, 72. Hers is around 70 degrees. Just to give an idea, usually white people don't get angles that are this low. To be honest with you, they usually get angles that are close to 80 or higher, because her lips are more retrusive. And the fact that her lips are not that retrusive kind of surprised me. And what I've noticed is her upper lip, I think, is what's making it intrusive, because she does have bimaxillary protrusion is actually fully grown. So her jaw incisors for her upper and bottom portion actually protrude up more, and that's something that is actually increasing that angle. But this is very surprising to me, to be honest with y'all. I was not expecting Taylor Swift to get this high, or not this high, but this low of an angle. Usually this is something that ethnic people may get, but not Caucasian, especially in Caucasian women. But another thing too is some of these celebrities also will get lip fillers and stuff like that. So that could be in the possibilities. I'm not sure. Her lower lip to upper lip ratio is 1.42, so she does have a very full lower lip than her upper lip. Another thing is too, with when I see when these female celebrities do all these lip fillers, is that they'll make their upper lip too big, to where it actually makes the philtrum appear short, and you don't want your philtrum to appear very short, because it's gonna unbalance the philtrum to chin ratio. And another thing too is, if your upper lip is as big as your lower lip, is not going to look real. So typically, like an African American person's upper lip might be the same size as a lower lip, but if you are a Caucasian person or close to one, and you have an upper lip that's damn near the size of your lower lip, that is going to be a little bit suspect, and that's going to be a little bit suspicious to it's going to be a way to determine, like, that's probably not their actual lip size. And you want to just have a perfect balance between your upper lip and lower lip. So your lower lip's supposed to be at least 1.4 times the upper lip. So you want your upper lip to be naturally smaller than your lower lip. Cheekbone high settiness, she gets a tier 1 at 88%. And this is probably like one of the highest cheekbone high settiness I've seen. I have a couple of people that I have measured that had 100%. Maybe like 2 celebrities that I've ever measured that had anything that was 100%, and those were female celebrities. But other than that, this is the highest that I've seen, or the third highest that I've seen for a female celebrity, I believe so. And so I don't think any male celebrities got anything of this nature to where it's above 88%. So 88% is extremely high, extremely rare, and it makes the face look youthful. You want to have cheekbones that are higher set. It makes it has a high fertility for a person who wants to be in the modeling industry. Makes her valuable in the music industry, I guess you can say, in terms of appearance. Recession relative to the Frankfurt plane angle, I just call this jaw recession. Now she does have a short mandible, like I did note in the her worst features. She does have a very short mandible. It might not seem like that because her chin is very protrusive. Her chin extends very far out, but her mandible does not. So that is something that is not good. So you want to have a very, very lengthy mandible, have an adequate size mandible for your face. And her mandible is not long. So I gave her a tier 3, which means that she has a moderate jaw recession. So if that blue line was close to her eyes or near the orbital vector, then that's when I would give it a tier 4. And a tier 4 means you get no points at all. Actually, a tier 4 means you're gonna actually lose points. So I'm gonna deduct points from your overall score if you was to get a tier 4 as well. But tier 3 is just as bad. So you do not want to have any jaw recession. It makes your face look incomplete, and it doesn't fit your skull shape. So yeah. All right, so the Canal Tilt is a tier 1 at 9.5 degrees. Anything more than this is actually going to be a tier 2, believe it or not. You don't want to have a Canal Tilt that is too high or too low. That is where harmony comes into place, which is balance. You don't want your eyes to be too upturned to where it makes you look like an alien or a supervillain or anything of that nature. And it might be too much of a tilt. So I don't know if y'all seen people with very tilted eyes, but it might just be too much of, just a Cantal tilts. Kind of like Mona's fam, or let's say Morris Chestnut, their eyes are too tilted. But also it can be an ethnic thing as well. Usually ethnic people tend to have eyes that are more upturned. I'm still gonna make a formula for different ethnic groups. I'm gonna break all that down, but that'll be later on in the year that I would do that. But yeah, so 9.5 is still within the ideal range, and this is perfectly fine. The mental cervical angle is pretty much the angle of your head shape or your skull from the front, or from the side I should say. And her angle is 87, which is ideal. You don't want this angle to be too narrow or too wide. And this is a kind of like a way to detect, to see if your lower third is too short or too long. And it also is a way to detect if you have a narrow head generally, or your head is just too wide. And the things that can affect this is having loose skin underneath the jaw area, and also having a recessed jaw with a very protrusive forehead. So you got to kind of have balance between all 3 areas. If you have 2 areas that are not balanced well, it can actually make the angle too obtuse or too acute, depending on the features. So that's kind of like why I put a green on balance, because her facial features are still balanced to a certain degree, and this is pretty good. The gonial angle, I got it at 122 degrees. So 122 degrees is perfectly fine. This gonial angle is so sharp that it can suit a male face as well. So not only a female face, but a male face as well. And you want a gonial angle that is pretty sharp, which hers is sharp, but not extremely sharp to where, I have to take any points off. But a tier 1 is perfectly fine. She does have a good balance between the mandible and the ramus. So I'm guessing some other measurements might be somewhat ideal as well, just from looking at this. And her mastery muscles also are kind of sticking out as well. So she does have pretty wide mastery muscles, and you can also see that from the front of her face. I did not include that in this presentation, but just something that I've noticed. The ramus to mandible ratio is 0.60 or 0.6, and that is a tier 1 again. And anything lower than this will be a tier 2 or close to a tier 2. Her ramus is lengthy, like I said again, just by looking at the gonial angle, I can kind of tell. And yeah, so she does have somewhat of a balance between her ramus and her mandible. All right. The gonial to mouth relationship, I got it at a tier 1. This is the best way to determine if you have an adequate sized jaw for your skull. And this also determines if your jaw is lower set. Normally lower jaws are jaws that are lower positioned are more attractive than jaws that are higher positioned, Preferably, you want your onion, which is the lower part of the bone where your ramus and your mandible intersects or touches. That should be below the mouth line. All right. So if it's not below the mouth line or it's at the mouth line, it just wouldn't look complete. So for hers is actually below the mouth line. So it makes her face or her skull look more complete and more fixated. And another thing too is if your ramus is short, it does not mean that you're going to automatically fail this measurement. Like I said, I thought at first that if you have a short ramus that you would not pass this measurement, but there are other factors that come into play with this measurement as well. And this is just one thing that kind of sort of correlates with the ramus and mandible measurement, but not always or all the time. So it's just one of these measurements that kind of can correlate and maybe not to a certain degree, but not all these measurements correlate with each other the way you may think. Last but not least, the nasal tip angle is a tier 6 at 150 degrees. 150 degrees means that her nasal tip is too rounded and she gets a tier 6. So she actually loses a couple of points for this. Not too much, but preferably want to have a sharper and refined, pointy or somewhat of a pointy nose. And so tier 6 for this. And women do have more of a rounder shaped nose, but even with that, her nose is just a little bit too rounded, too bulbous around the tip, so she's not going to get any points for this. And that's pretty much it. And like I said again, if you want me to rate your face, make sure you hit me up on IG. I'll do it for free. It only take me 2 to 3 days. And that's pretty much it. And her rating is an 8, and she is like one in like 5,000 people or something like that. And that is extremely rare, which put her at a 0.01%, which is very rare. And that probably contributes to her success in the music industry, surprisingly. But yeah, peace.